Sorry for the delay, everyone. Thank you for coming. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Hani Abu Ghazaleh. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mental. We're a virtual reality company that's based in Abu Dhabi, and we're growing an operation in Montreal. So a little bit about myself. I actually started my career in video games. I have more than 20 years of experience in computer-generated graphics. I worked mainly on open world games back when I was in Vancouver at companies that include Ubisoft, Square Enix, and Activision. And today, what we're going to be talking about is drawing parallels, from a personal and from my colleagues' journey, being game developers and shifting focus from developing games into creating realistic virtual reality simulations. So, like I said, we're based out of Abu Dhabi, and we have an operation in Saudi through our partner. We have a partnership with Injazat, G42 company, and our core tech team is based out of Montreal. So, some of the concept art here is from previous games that I worked on. I'll give credit to the publisher here. This is for Square Enix from Sleeping Dogs. So. What are the parallels between creating environments for VR and games? Games, in essence, in their most basic form, they're simulations. They're worlds that have environments. They have logic. There are characters that are there. There are things that the player can interact with. There are time systems that control the time of day, that can control the weather, and the player has the freedom to do a lot of things in open world games. Whether it's GTA or Sleeping Dogs or Assassin's Creed, they have the freedom to interact with that world. But also what we do is we take them on a journey. So there are tasks that they have to do. There are certain missions that they have to do. And those missions result in a score. And then as the player gets better, those missions get more difficult. Eventually they start getting challenging. You teach them the basics, and slowly, indirectly, they can do more and more advanced work. So, how did we shift from games to VR? When we started looking at virtual reality, virtual reality as a technology, it's been around for a long time. It really started maturing in the last 6 years. So we started looking at opportunities to leverage the technology, both from computer graphics perspective as well as game theory. Players get immersed in games. They remember the names of their favorite characters. They remember the names and the locations of their environments. So the technology itself, which is mainly Unreal and Unity, is the same technology that's being used to develop virtual reality games. And it gave us that opportunity. The other thing is the scoring system, the bragging rights that the players get, how they get scored. If you look at training, there's also a scoring system there. They get assessed. They get tested. There's an opportunity to create a healthy competitiveness between the workforce, like we do between players. There's gamification that could happen where you can create a leaderboard, an incentive for the trainer to go back and engage themselves through the simulation over and over again. And for us, the team, a virtual reality development team is typically very similar to a game development team. So you need the programmers, the developers, you need the engine team, you need 3D artists, you need two-dimensional artists, you need designers. The main differentiator is the subject matter experts. So what we do in essence is we take the backbone of the educational goals, and we inject it through a creative pipeline, through our designers and artists, and create very realistic simulations that are engaging, that are task-oriented, that are driving the trainees to want to go play over and over again. And then the worlds that you create in games, they're similar to VR, they're virtual worlds. In some cases, it could be a digital double of a real location. In other cases, it could be a fictional location that serves the purpose of the training. And the most part that we found really work well from a process, which is the game design process. How do you, if you tell somebody you have a training day to day and you teach them through having a speaker like myself talking right now, or through videos, it's going to be a drag, right? So the key thing that we're finding here is how do you engage the trainer, the same way that you engage the player. And that's one of the key fundamental factors that we put in all our experiences. And the last point is the product or platform as a service. If some of you played games in the past, especially more recently, mobile games, what we see is a significant change in the first iteration of the game versus the last iteration. Take Clash Royale or Angry Birds, you know. And what happens is a game development team, they launch the game and they monitor through data the behavior of the player. And it goes back to the development team and there's iterations. And what's happening in essence is the players community, they're driving the evolution of the content. So instead of releasing a content on a game and just leaving the player or the trainee with it, the key thing is releasing what we call an MVP or the minimum viable product or content. And then from that point on, iterating on it until the business goals are met. And that's how the gaming industry has been functioning for the last 7-8 years. And that's the way that we're trying to drive the content that we create for virtual reality. So a little bit about the market, and I'm sure if some of you are interested, we're witnessing a significant growth, significant interest in VR, specifically in training. So the size of the market is projected to be around $140 billion by 2024. Almost 18% of it, $19 billion, is going to go towards training. And we're seeing trends. The application of VR is really unlimited. Like anything that you can do in the real world, you can do in VR. And more importantly, the things that you can't do in the real world, whether because it's expensive or it's impossible to do, you can actually do it in VR. So some examples is hospitality. We're seeing Walmart engaging and creating virtual stores. Healthcare through we have a partner in Vancouver called Precision. We have almost 22 realistic orthopedic training procedures. Car industry, we're seeing VW, Mercedes, Audi, they're all engaging in it, aviation, sports, and so on and so forth. And the list goes on for forever. What we're finding here, the three main sectors that are responding to it and they're getting direct business results from it are energy, healthcare, and defense. So some of the results that we've captured, us as well as partners in us, the key thing is VR needs to serve first and foremost the business goals. So if we work with our clients as partners and define what the business goals are, some of them are related to onboarding time. You want the trainee to be proficient as quickly as possible. An example of that, all rigs take 2 years to build, but the blueprints are available. So what you can do is expedite the training. By the time the oil rig is completely built, you can actually have your workforce already there. So that results in a significant reduction in onboarding time. The other thing is the performance, and that's the most important thing. Experiential learning, even before VR, was a very important topic. And there's a lot of research that's coming out of Yale and Stanford that's showing that, and we're seeing that change happening in schools as well. And the reason behind that is when you do things with your own hands, the chances are you're going to learn faster, and the retention rate is going to be much higher. If you think of a trip that you went to 12 or 15 years ago, and you probably remember the smallest details about it because you lived and you experienced that trip. If you think of a lecture that you went to or a class that you went to that time, you probably don't remember most of the stuff that was told there. And one of the most important things for businesses is the cost reduction. So if we take healthcare, for example, the cost of a cadaver is insanely high, and you can only use it for 5 or 6 sessions at most, right? Having a digital version of that cadaver allows you to use it as many times as you want. You can have hundreds of people using the same cadaver. There's no really limit on that, as many times as they want. So that results in a significant reduction in the cost. Very quickly, just talking about the process that we take in the development. I'm going to get to showing some demos in a bit, so if you bear with me, a few more slides here. So the way that we typically work is we take the business goals out of from the client. And before we go ahead and develop the modules for them, it's very important for us to build a proof of concept or pilot, if you will, to make sure that we're hitting all the notes, all the strings, and we're getting results from it. So what we do is we do a pilot, we measure. If it works, that's great. If it doesn't, it goes back to production, and you keep iterating until you get the perfect results. And once you have positive impact, that's when you can roll out and do what we call an A/B testing. So we test it with two groups of people. One group would train with VR, and another group would train traditionally, and we extract the KPIs from that. And internally, the way that we structure the team is we have our technology team working with the content creators as well as the subject matter experts. And depending on the topic, the subject matter expert could be oil and gas experts, they could be doctors or surgeons, or they could be members of the defense force. The three teams work closely together. Once we get validation from them, we move on, prove success, and scale the content externally. And the most important thing is, a lot of people think about VR, the experience, but what's really important is what are you measuring inside of that experience? How are we as developers learning from what's happening? How are clients getting an insight on the performance of their staff individually and as big data? How are they managing those staff? How are they rolling out the devices? How do they send updates to the client? So a big part of it is the back end, everything that's happening there, that's controlling and giving an insight on what's happening there. Once you have that, that's a very powerful tool for you and for your customers to do that. And then the other part which we touched on, gamification cannot be an afterthought. The way that we develop the content is gamification is in the DNA of the experience itself. So if you create a virtual coin that can be related to the type of business that you're doing and reward your trainees, the best performers, you have a much better chance of having an engagement from them. And the other part is you're actually identifying your best performers, because training traditionally has been happening at the beginning of the job, just before you start. The way that we're working with our customers is that we're doing assessments throughout the year. So every quarter there's an assessment that happens, and the best performers get identified, and there are certain modules that lend themselves for that certification. So having a bit of that gamification can improve the engagement and also help the admin team to identify it. So what we're looking at now, for the most part, is what is a solution, a complete solution that you can give to a client. For us, everything needs to be on the cloud. It needs to be centralized in one place, and it has multiple elements. The one part is the hardware, and we have our partners HTC here providing us with the hardware. The other part is hosting. When you're working with government and large organizations, security is a very important part of it. So it's important that there's a cybersecurity solution that's protecting the privacy of those sessions that are happening, as well as the data that the employees have. The other part is managing the content. When you have a repository of content there, you need to be able to manage it from one place, control what client gets what content. When updates are released, that they get notified remotely, regardless of their location from it. So it's a full-on content management system, as well as the management of the trainees. Sending reminders, sending calendars, looking at results, getting feedback from them, and then the APIs that allows organizations to integrate with some of their existing systems. A lot of the organizations have their existing LMS. They might want to take a subset of the data that's coming out of the platform and use it for themselves. And then the analytics and reporting and certification module that really helps the trainers, with the headache where there's some auto certification that could happen in the background. So what I'm going to do now is I'll stop here for a bit. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to play one or two videos from experiences that we worked on. But what we're going to do is in the afternoon, we're going to have a hands-on demo that's going to be available here at this stand for anybody that wants to try it. Any questions? Sure.
First, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
You mentioned a very important element, which is gamification. We also face in the enterprise business where people talk to HR or talk to people who are handling projects to be implemented, whether in VR or no, and they tend to consider this that it's still informal, it's still unprofessional, it's still nice to have, but not really getting the value out of it. Are you linking it to an LMS or any management system or any areas to really position this as an added value, and how are you doing about it? And if you faced any challenges in the past around this in the organization, if you could please share.
Yeah. Thanks. You're absolutely right. So if I understood correctly, gamification is important. HR might perceive once you do a gamification that it's not serious training, right? So the key thing is in the balance, depending on the client. So what we found is we've done K-12 learning modules in the past. It's a younger age group, and we really exaggerated the gamification for it. The key thing is to do it in moderation. So a leaderboard and the way that you do the presentation of the leaderboard is basically a way to identify your best performers. So the rest of it is how do you present it. The most important thing is actually for the HR team to see the results. And once you do the comparison between previous training that they've done, the level of engagement that they're getting out of their employees, and ultimately seeing like the needle swing once you release that batch of trainees onto the workforce. So we're not facing a lot of challenge from HR. If anything, I think gamification now is becoming more of a buzzword. But rather than doing it as an afterthought, what we do is we think of it from the get-go. So an example of that is, and maybe I'll show a video from it now, creating a story behind a situation can really make you believe that you're in there. Whether it's health and safety or whether operating a piece of equipment. Creating a bit of a premise around what you're doing is a form of gamification, right? And then having a task-based system that gives you a mission. Your mission is to do this, this, and that. All we're doing is actually playing with words and creating a bit of a story to make it more engaging, as opposed to a pure technical application of the training module.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No?
I have another question.
Okay, thank you.
We see in the VR industry a lot of customers, they ask for prototypes. And we understand that creating a prototype, especially when you mentioned about game engines and teams working in the back, and it's not a simple presentation that you can go with it to a client or a video to show. It's the core of your application, it's the kernel of what you're building, and it's something that will cost you time, investment, and effort. And if it works, eventually it's gonna be the template for everything you're gonna deliver. How are you managing this kind of expectation from customer's perspective? Is it paid? Is it unpaid? And maybe a few case scenarios.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So POCs can be very costly, and when you first start a company, you'll get a lot of requests from it. And we've actually paid the price of having to build a lot of POCs. Some of them resulted in business opportunities, others didn't. What we ended up doing over the last 4 years is we've focused our effort on 3 verticals that we're working on, and invested in prototypes that represent each one of those POCs. And from that point on, we either show it to the client as an example, and if they want more, then we request for at cost payment. The other thing that we offer is sometimes we reimburse the client once they sign the contract. So we tell them, okay, you get paid for this, and you'll get a discount once we have the bigger contract from you. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll have a demo this afternoon here if anybody wants to try it. I'll show a video very quickly. Yeah. So this is a project that we worked on a couple of years ago with Flutter. the regulator of the nuclear energy. We've built several modules for them. The key business problem for them was the cost of this training scenario, the complexity in terms of having multiple entities from different parts, that includes the firefighters, the CBRN team, the Abu Dhabi police force, and the other thing is the accessibility. So it was costing them more than $1 million dirhams to block off a road and bring all of these people and stage an accident. So the goal of this is, here's an accident. This accident has medical equipment in it, and I'll play and talk while this is happening. So as a fun, or as part of the regulator of the nuclear energy, how do you make sure that you can secure the location? So there's one module that teaches them about the equipment, how to use those equipments, and the other part is, okay, well now here's the place that has the accident. So the first thing you need to do, and these are actual replicas of the equipment that get used. So the first thing is identify the source of the radiation. The other part is going to be taking multiple measurements of the radiation from multiple locations. So there's a device that gets used to do that. So the first measurement is taken from 30 meters. So what we've done is not only we've created the digital double of the binoculars, but we've also used the same formula that gets used to do the measurements as well. So the last part is using a spectrometer, which identifies the type of radiation that it is. So I'm going to stop it here for the interest of time, and please feel free to come this afternoon. My colleague Rami will be here, and you're more than welcome to try it, as well as a few other things. Thank you very much. Thank you.